first quarter of this year. Well, to discuss, we're joined by the Executive Director of the Manufacturing Circle, representing our major manufacturers in this country, Conrad Bezedno. Thank you for joining us. Was this worse than you expected?
Sadly not. The impact of the strike has been felt throughout the manufacturing sector, not only throughout the manufacturing sector. But as far as it concerns us, every day the strike still carries on. Tens of millions of rands of purchases are not happening in the economy. The manufacturing sector supplies the mining sector, but it's also supplied by the mining sector. 70% of platinum group metals go into industrial output, and so it's a double whammy.
The employment sub-indice is even lower, down here 37, a 5-year low. Are your members talking about job losses? Are people being laid off at the moment?
In actual fact, I've been speaking about it for quite some time. The problem is that what we've had in the economy is numerous bunched up cost increases over the last couple of years. So costs have increased rapidly. These are not costs that are attached to demand, but are attached to services that the state supplies. So the state puts the price on that service: electricity, water, the security of those services, and so on. And the increased costs that we've seen over time have meant that manufacturers, in order to protect their competitiveness, have had to cut costs in other places, and this has made mechanization very attractive. Increased labor instability, of course, adds to these pressures, and the fact that there is now such decreased demand in the economy means that whatever we produce are produced at much higher cost. So the first place that they are going to go is to try and lessen the number of hands that they have on the production line, not because they want to do it, but because they have to do it to ensure their survival.
Can we quantify this? Do we know how many companies have mechanized? How many are planning to mechanize? And of course, it's so sad because we want to absorb jobs and absorb labor.
Look, it's very difficult for us to put an absolute figure on that, but what we are seeing is that on the outer fringes, at least 5% or so of our companies are looking at decreasing their employment complements by 15% or more over the next year. And if the number is that high, it means mechanization.
Is this purely a result of the strike? And I'd like you to explain, because for years we've been hearing that the mining sector has contracted over time. So Johannesburg was built on gold, but now it accounts for less than 5% of our GDP. But explain the linkages and how the sector that accounts for less than 5% can ripple across our economy and hit the manufacturing sector so hard.
Our two upstream sectors that are the most important for manufacturing is mining and agriculture. And both of those sectors have been prone to huge labor instability over the last couple of years. This strike, of course, is the longest one that we've seen in a long time, and in fact the longest one ever. And the ripple effects go throughout the economy. So it's not only the companies that are not buying from us and that we're not supplying, but it's also the workers that are not earning salaries, that are not paying remittance to relatives in the Eastern Cape. And the retailers will tell you that they're being hit very hard in the Eastern Cape at the moment as a result of these strikes. This is not something where anybody is going to walk out the winner. We are now physically taking the economy apart, and the longer this takes, or the longer this is going to last, the more lasting the damage is going to be.
Well, there's now talk of a strike in the engineering sector. NUMSA says that's basically inevitable because a dispute has been declared. So what does that mean for this figure and for these worries that our economy is actually heading towards a recession?
It means that possibility is quite real, and the possibility that we're going to see our unemployment figures escalate is quite real, until such time as we can pull together as a country in favor of growth rather than in favor of pulling ourselves apart. That's what we're doing.
What would you like to see as the manufacturing sector?
Well, we think that this intergovernmental task team that have been put together in the last week is a welcome development, and we hope that there's stuff that comes from there. But what we actually need is somebody to step forward somebody in government and to say that this is the direction in which we need to go. It is wrong that at the cost of the entire economy, we are acting as irresponsibly as we are. This is not contained to a particular sector. We spoke about the importance of the mining sector. It's 5 or 6% of the economy, but the multiplier effects run throughout the economy. The mining sector is the first domino always. If that tumbles, the rest of the economy starts to tumble with it.
Is there any good news here, Conrad? Because we are going to run a story that China's PMI, so the very same thing, looking good there. And what about our exports? Can't we just bump those exports up when the rand is weak?
Well, one of the sad things about the figures that are coming out today is the divergence with international figures, because in Europe things are going much better, in China things are going better, in the US things are going much better. Our currency is weaker at the moment. We're supposed to be doing great with exports and so on, but we've got huge bottlenecks sending things out of the country. There's huge obstacles and red tape barriers going into Africa, which is supposed to be our real growth market. We've got a lot of work to do in terms of fixing our infrastructure bottlenecks as well as market access. In terms of positivity, our future business conditions sub-index of the PMI does show an increase to almost 60 index points. That's up about 5 from the previous month. I suspect it's got something to do with export prospects, but also perhaps with that little bit of positivity, that outlook that perhaps the strike might be nearing its end.
All right, so a little glimmer of hope. Thank you for your analysis,
Ever
as
so
always.
slight.
Ever so slight. Conrad Bezuidenhout from the Manufacturing Circle.